Good evening to you. I'm Danilo Evangelista, and welcome to our tropical weather outlook on Hurricane Erin for Sunday, August 17th, 2025. I know I'm posting this update once again very late at night, but I've not been feeling well throughout most of the day today, but finally felt better enough that I'll post an update on Hurricane Erin. I did not want to go a full day without posting, especially given that Hurricane Erin is indeed a major hurricane, not quite as strong as it was yesterday, but the biggest issue now is that it is growing dramatically in size, and it's also probably going to re-strengthen too in the coming hours, since it is now fully completed its eyewall replacement cycle that it underwent yesterday and today. And we're probably going to see this re-strengthen overnight tonight and beginning tomorrow. But I want to start off with a satellite image of Hurricane Erin, and you could see first off, just how much of a massive storm it is now. Yesterday, especially yesterday morning, it had a very, very small eye. It was still a huge storm, but a very small eye and a very small core. Well, since last night and for the most of the day today, it's undergone an eye wall replacement cycle, which means that its core, its inner core, was choked off and outer bands formed an outer eye wall around the inner core, and that now became the dominant new core of the storm. So basically, this Hurricane Erin now has a new eye and eye wall that is much larger, meaning that the storm is now much larger in size, especially with its wind field. And that's going to be a whole other issue that we're going to have to talk about, especially as this progresses northwestward. And it might be big enough over the coming days because Erin is much larger in size now and it's only getting larger, that it might be something we need to talk about as especially it approaches the Carolinas coast, or it approaches near the Carolinas coast as we head into next week. And I also mentioned how we were seeing shifts in track. And obviously, as you can tell by the latest National Hurricane Center forecast, this is as of the track is as of 5 p.m., but obviously this is the 8 p.m. advisory. And maximum sustained winds are at 125 miles per hour. So Erin is a weaker storm, definitely today than it was yesterday. But it's going to remain a major hurricane for the next few days. And as I was mentioning with the track, definitely we had some shift wests, and I mentioned that yesterday on Twitter. And I will say I did get surprisingly a lot of flack for some reason for saying that there were some westerly shifts that were happening. And we are going to have to watch it very closely because Erin, as I mentioned, is growing in size. And even though, as the National Hurricane Center forecast track shows, this is definitely, I'm going to say this right now, it's definitely going to go out to sea, and will probably not have a direct landfall along the Carolinas coast. Erin will be growing in size, and it's already grown quite a bit since it's undergone its eye wall replacement cycle. It's only going to grow even further. And even if this passes, I should say, several hundred miles to the east of the Outer Banks of North Carolina, the tropical storm wind field by then could be large enough that we might see tropical storm force winds right along the coast of North Carolina. So this will be something that we need to watch over the coming days. And remember, I'm always focusing about the impacts, even no matter what the storm is, even if it's not a direct landfall. I'm always going to mention the impacts, and that's what I've been doing this season, especially with a bunch of the rainfall that we've had and the heavy rain and flash flooding events that we've had in the past month or two. So obviously, I'm going to mention that we will have impacts. And even for portions of southeastern Bahamas, we're not expecting a landfall in the Bahamas with Hurricane Erin, but there are tropical storm warnings in effect because the wind field will once again probably be large enough that we're going to get heavy rain and gusty winds up to tropical storm force to be felt in some of these far southeastern Bahamas islands. And I'm saying that that might be the case as well here for coastal North Carolina. which is why we're going to have to watch this storm very closely over the next several days, especially to see if we see any more western wobbles with the track. So we'll see what happens. But I will also say that this will probably remain a major hurricane as well for the next few days. And something that I like to bring up from time to time, the ACE for Hurricane Erin. We're probably going to rack up a lot of ACE because of Hurricane Erin. It's going to remain a major hurricane. At least the National Hurricane Center expects it to do so all the way up till at least Wednesday next week. So you bet that the ACE will be quite high once we get towards the end of next week here in the Atlantic. In fact, the ACE is already very, very high. The current accumulated cyclone ACE in the Atlantic is 18 points. I thought the number inside the parentheses was the current number, and the number outside was the average. But no, the current ACE number now, thanks to Erin and thanks to the fact that it's been a major hurricane for roughly around a day and a half or so now, the ACE is now skyrocketed to 18 points. And this is very significant because if you remember, just a few weeks ago, we had quite a bit below normal ACE. I mean, we had a few named storms throughout the hurricane season so far leading up to Erin, but all of them were weak and not very long-lived. Not going to be the case with Erin. It's single-handedly now bringing this season to above normal ACE. And the ACE is only going to skyrocket even further from here on out, not just with Erin, but with more activity that's probably going to come in the Atlantic. And I'll talk about that briefly towards the end of the video. But ACE is also skyrocketing as well. And I mean, this is more of a statistical thing when it comes to talking about hurricane seasons, but it's very interesting to point out. So I'm pointing it out right now. What about recon with Erin? And there is a recon flight en route right now. In fact, they're actually entering the hurricane, and we're actually going to see if Erin is beginning to strengthen again. I think it probably is, especially given that the satellite imagery, as I showed you, Erin is definitely looking more organized. You could actually see some of these curling convective bands here beginning to circle the eye wall, and you could also start to see the makings of what the eye will be now. Definitely much larger than it was before, again, thanks to the eye wall replacement cycle. So from this recon, we'll probably see if Erin has at all begun to re-strengthen. I think it has, and definitely by tomorrow morning wouldn't shock me if Erin is back up to a Category 4. But so we have this recon. We also had this other recon, which was in there earlier, but somehow malfunctioned and they had to turn back. And I saw a few jokes about that on Twitter earlier. But looks like we won't have this recon to get data from, but it's all going to come down to this, and we'll see if Erin is re-strengthening. But I think it definitely will. And one of the reasons why it'll definitely re-strengthen, just take a look at the sea surface temperatures ahead of it. Erin is right now in 29 degrees Celsius waters, which encompass pretty much the entirety of the water north of the islands, and that alone was enough for Erin to rapidly strengthen yesterday and the night before from a Category 1 into a Category 5 in a span of roughly 12 hours or so. And ahead of that, the warmest waters, Erin is not even in the warmest waters yet in the Western Atlantic. Especially in this patch here just northeast of the Bahamas, we have 30 degrees Celsius. And especially if Erin is able to fully clear out its eye now that it's begun or it's finished its eye wall replacement cycle, you bet that Erin is going to probably re-strengthen in the coming days. And I'll show you what all the models have right now. I'll show you the European first. I was actually going to show you the GFS first, but I'll show you the European. And as you can see over the next few days, re-strengthens quite a bit. European brings this down to 938 millibars just east of the Bahamas. So it'll probably re-strengthen as we head into early next week. And again, it'll probably remain an intense storm all the way through. And then it eventually will get north enough. We'll get close to the North Carolina coast. And as you can see, it's going to be a large storm by then. And I'll show you from now where it is on the European. Just looking at the European model alone, you could see from now up until early to mid next week just how much Erin will continue to grow in size. And you could see here that some of these outer precipitation bands will probably impact the North Carolina coast. And again, I will not be surprised if we see right along the outer banks of North Carolina some tropical storm watches and warnings go up for potential gusty winds and heavy rain as Erin passes just to the east. Once again, I'm not saying that it'll make a landfall, because I know a lot of people had quite a bit to say about that when I mentioned the potential of Erin shifting west yesterday. Um, but it'll probably be large enough, and we'll see what happens if it maybe shifts a little bit further west in track. That once again, we'll probably see some impacts here to the outer banks of North Carolina. But then after that, it'll turn out to sea. And then we're going to have to start worrying about other stuff here in the Atlantic. And you kind of see this weak low here on the European. The European is not necessarily as aggressive on it as the GFS. But there is something that we're going to have to watch behind Erin, and the National Hurricane Center has already mentioned it. But once again, just want to quickly show you the GFS grows in size quite a bit, and man, look at how big Erin is, especially off the east coast of the Carolinas. And if we just have a very small westerly shift, like probably 5 or 10 miles in the short term, that Erin nudges slightly to the west. I would imagine this track here will probably be shifted, maybe not even that much, maybe even just 30, 40, 50 miles, because of how large this is. We'll probably have, just by that alone, more significant impacts along the Carolinas coast when it comes to gusty winds and heavy rain. But obviously, not talking about a direct landfall with Erin, and obviously the GFS again does also show re-strengthening. Bottoms this out at 936 millibars, so it's safe to say that I think Erin will probably re-strengthen in the coming days back to a Category 4. Whether or not becomes a Category 5 again, that'll be a very interesting thing to see. Probably not. But then obviously as we head towards the end of next week, Erin then moves off into the northeast. And then eventually beyond that, you could see something else already coming into frame on the GFS. But before I get to that, just really quickly want to show you one of the impacts with Erin that we'll have to be watching off the Carolinas coast. Not only will be the gusty winds and heavy rain, because that is something that I do mention because of how big Erin will be. The outer fringes will probably impact the Carolinas, but the waves will also be ginormous with Erin too. This is from Jeff Baradelli on Twitter. He tweeted this today, actually not long ago. 100-feet wave, not out of the question with Erin. And then he says, but I see lots of folks posting maximum wave heights, and he does mention there is clickbait behind it. But he does mention that, again, Dorian had very high waves, and Erin will probably also have very high waves too. He mentions that the forecast is for 60 feet. Bottom line, what I'm trying to bring to you here is that Erin will likely have very large waves because of, again, how massive of a system it is, and how massive of a system it'll be, just how much energy the system will have, and that's going to churn up the water a lot, that the waves will be very high. And you bet that even if this it'll probably stay off the coast of the Carolina, but even if this being a few hundred miles off the coast, we'll probably see some beach erosion, maybe some slight storm surge along the Carolinas coast, and maybe even especially along the Outer Banks, some gusty winds, but especially rip currents. And as I've mentioned before, rip currents is something that you cannot play with because it does take your life, and we have seen lives taken in the past due to rip currents. Boy, are the waves going to be churning out in the Atlantic over the next several days. And not only the Carolinas and off the southeast coast will we be seeing these very strong rip currents, but probably all the way up to New England as well. It'll be a major issue. So keep in mind of the waves. Something else to mention with Erin. And of course, tropical storm force winds. You can see here they are non-zero chance that we will see some tropical storm force winds here off the Carolinas coast, and it's just because a matter of how big the storm will get once it gets further north and northeast. And by the time we get right off the Carolinas coast, Erin will once again be a huge storm, and even here on the National Hurricane Center confirms what I'm saying. Would not be surprised if we see some tropical storm force gusts and heavy rain as Erin passes offshore, as over the next few days as we head into next week. But beyond that, really quickly want to bring your attention as we wrap up. We do have something else behind Erin, and in fact, let me bring you back to the National Hurricane Center homepage. Obviously, we have Erin, but we also have another disturbance which was mentioned, I think, yesterday by the National Hurricane Center, and now this is up to a 40% chance of development within the next 7 days. Once again, yet another thing we're going to have to watch in the Atlantic, and as I've been saying, do not breathe a sigh of relief, even though Erin is, again, more likely than not, definitely going to stay off the U.S. East Coast. We're not going to get a direct U.S. landfall with Erin. Do not breathe a sigh of relief, because we probably will have something else to track in the Atlantic as we head into the next week, as you could clearly see here by the National Hurricane Center. And what is it that we are tracking? It is this wave right here in the Eastern Atlantic, and quite convectively active right now, as you can see. And not all the models are having it. The GFS, as I just showed you, is the most aggressive model right now. And of course, the GFS has been having its fun with it in some model runs, with, showing a massive hurricane into the Gulf. And obviously you cannot take that seriously. But bottom line, there is a signal for something else in the Atlantic right after Erin. And again, as I've been saying, this is just the beginning. We are only in August 17th, heading into August 18th. The peak of the hurricane season literally begins on August 20th. So we're 2 days away from only the start of the ramp up of the hurricane season, and we're likely going to see a lot more coming. And we already have the signals for something else happening beyond Erin. Here's the 850 millibar vorticity. You can see definitely lots of energy associated with the wave coming off of Africa. And we're going to have to watch this over the next several weeks, or the next week or so, once again, as I show you with the sea surface temperature anomalies. Lastly here, surprisingly, despite the fact that we had Erin, they're still very warm, not at all churned up yet. Maybe it'll begin to show up in the coming days. Slight churning of the water here with Erin, especially just north of the islands here. But overall, the Atlantic is still very much above normal sea surface temperature anomalies throughout most of the central and western MDR, heading into the Caribbean, and still in the southwestern Atlantic. Even after Erin passes, we'll probably still see very warm sea surface temperatures here. It's definitely going to open the door for more activity to happen behind Erin. And once again, it's still only mid-August. We are not through the last third of the month yet. We still have a long way to go with this season, and in many ways, we are just only at the beginning of the true meat of this hurricane season. But for now, obviously, we're going to continue to focus on Erin. As again, I've said, I've not posted much today, but tomorrow that will change. I'm definitely going to post multiple videos tomorrow. Also going to post a little bit more on Twitter too. I've also taken somewhat of a break on Twitter today, although I did post a few things. But I'll definitely post more on Twitter, so follow me if you've not followed me yet on Twitter, at Danilo Evangelista, same as I have here on YouTube. And if you're coming from Twitter to YouTube, please make sure to subscribe, or if you're just coming here and seeing me for the first time on YouTube alone, please make sure to subscribe as well, because we're going to have a lot coming in the next coming days as we track Erin, and likely what is probably to come beyond. With that being said, I'm going to end off for tonight. Hope you enjoyed what you saw. Thanks for watching. Enjoy the rest of your evening and night. Stay safe. Peace, love, and kindness to you all. And of course, I'll be back with much more tomorrow.